Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what happens with the current in a AC circuit that has a capacitor installed. So what goes on in a AC circuit when there's a capacitor is because this capacitor is always going to be absorbing and letting electrons off of its plates to try to counteract the our red line here is our applied voltage or whatever our whatever our EMF source is. Um, so what happens is that as the voltage first starts to rise, our source voltage first starts to rise, the capacitor, its current is at its maximum, right? Because it's as soon as it sees that voltage rise from zero and come up, the capacitor is either going to take on as many electrons as it possibly can, or after it's charged, it's going to give them off. Right? This is happening constantly. Um, so the current is always going to happen 90 degrees in the capacitive circuit is always going to happen 90 degrees ahead of when it would have happened in a resistive circuit, right? Because if this was a resistor, then the current would be exactly in sync with our source wave, right? If it was a resistive value, it would be like that. Sorry, I'm not an artist, but right. And with a capacitor, because it's reacting to that change in voltage, as soon as it sees the voltage start to rise, it either, like I say, sucks on as many electrons onto one plate as it can, or if it's already fully charged, it'll try to push the electrons back out as fast as it possibly can. Right? It's happening. Whatever's happening on one plate, the opposite's happening on the other. Right? If this one's filling with electrons, this one's giving up all its electrons. If this one's filling electrons, that one gives up all its electrons. Right? That's the way the capacitor works, and that means that like I say, our current is always going to be 90 degrees behind the times on of our source voltage. The inductor was the exact opposite. Um, in the inductor, we saw its maximum current 90 degrees ahead. So there it's at its peak. So when that voltage is zero, that should be at its peak. The inductive current, if we had an inductor in the circuit rather than a capacitor, its current would be there, right? It would be 90 degrees lagging the voltage. Capacitors are 90 degrees leading. Resistance is always in phase with our supply voltage. So that's kind of what's going on with the current in a capacitive circuit.